Hey guys, it's me Elizabeth. Welcome or welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing I don't know what to call this, but basically Chantel Reads All Day is someone I follow on YouTube, and she put out this video about doing this like DIY literary degree, and I really liked the idea that she had, the stuff that she was doing. I don't like the idea of a degree because I'm not really into like getting a college degree and all that, but I like the idea of all the stuff that she did in this literature degree, so I'm going to do her thing that she's doing. She had it so that like she tried to make it up so other people could do it as well, and she has like parts where you can screenshot and kind of like get ideas for what you want to do with your own thing, and she has 3 different sections or 3 different whatever you want to call them. Again, I'm not a college graduate. I've never been into a college in my life, so there's that. But there's 3 different things. One is pick a time period, and then there's some sub things underneath of that. And then 2 is pick a specialty. There's some sub things underneath that. And 3 is pick a literary mentor, and there's some other things underneath that one as well. So starting off with picking a time period, we have the things underneath are read 4+ books from the time period, read critical text or watch a YouTube video, read 6+ poems and or from different poets, read critical text or watch a YouTube video. Then for pick a specialty, the ones underneath of it is read some works on that specialty, read critical text or watch a YouTube video. And then pick a literary mentor, we have read as many of their works as you can, read critical text / watch a YouTube video, whichever one. I'm going to attempt to do this sort of thing, and these are all these are all going to be books that I want to read / are on my TBR shelf because I have way too many classics and I need to read them. So that's why main reason I want to do this. Also, I want to mention that reading the critical text and watching YouTube videos, I may do, but I also might not do. Like, it just depends. And who knows if I'll read any of these anyways. But, I mean, I'll eventually read them. That's why I own them. But, you know, so let's get into it. Let me show you the books for the different things. Time period that I chose was the Victorian era because that is the one that I have the most books about. But there's, in her video, she goes from all the way from the Middle Ages up till like basically present, so there's a whole bunch of different time periods within that. We have Middle Ages, 16th century, early 17th century, Restoration in 18th century, Romantic period, Victorian era, and 20th. So those are the eras that she put. For me, like, if we're just talking about like literary classics and stuff like that, there is like ancient time period as well. There's like the Greek and Roman and all of that stuff. Like, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's Homer, there's Livy, there's all of the other Roman and Greek classics. Like, so there is stuff that's before the Middle Ages, in my personal opinion. That stuff would count in this. I don't know why it wouldn't. But, again, I'm going for the Victorian era because that's the books I have the most books on. Or books written in that time period. Now, what this entails is for picking books for the Victorian era, it has to be a book written in the Victorian era, and the Victorian era spans from the Victorian era spans from 1837 to 1901. So any year in between there works if it's written by an author that wrote that book in between any of that time period. So let's just get into the books that I have. I have a giant stack. I have a lot of books here, and this is probably wholly unrealistic. It does say pick 4+ books, so either 4 or more. So if I read 4 of these, I'll be impressed. But I probably won't read all of these. But these are just the options, the ones that I want to do the most. And I looked all of them up to double check some of the ones I wasn't sure about, that they were all fit into the Victorian era, and they do. So let's get into the books. Starting off, we're going to start off with the books for the Victorian era. We have The Mill of Loss by George Eliot. I actually legitimately have no clue what this book is about. This is kind of a cover buy because I saw this cover and was like, that's gorgeous, I need to have that. But I also kind of want to read it, so I don't really know anything about it. But I know George Eliot is familiar author, so that's one of my options. And then I also have Mark Twain, 5 novels: The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Prince and Pauper, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson. So I'm not going to read this whole book. That is too much considering some of my other thoughts and plans. But I would like to read one of the Mark Twain novels. We'll see which one. I have technically read Tom Sawyer before, but it was either, wait, did I read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn? I either read both or one of them. I don't remember which. Honestly, it was such a long time ago. But I want to pick one of the stories to read. I don't really know exactly which one. Probably, I mean, I don't really know what most of these are about except for Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. So, I mean, the title, A Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, sounds really intriguing. But I'm also really interested to read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. So I don't really know. But I would like to eventually get to one of those. Then we have Thomas Hardy, Tess of the Ubervilles. I don't really know much of anything about this, except that it's his most popular novel, I believe. So I don't really know anything about the actual story of this, but I have it, so I want to read it, basically. And then we also have The Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas, because, I mean, have you read Alexander Dumas? I'm currently reading the Count of Monte Cristo. I have like 6 hours left in my audiobook, and it's insane. It's amazing, and I've always loved the story of the Three Musketeers. I've seen many different movie versions, but I like the original movie version that's from, I don't know what year, but it's like an really older version. And then my big challenge is that I want to legitimately get to this book. We'll see how this goes. I may end up just trying to attempt to listen to an audiobook version of it because it is huge. This is like, it would be kind of cool to challenge myself to like actually legitimately read this physically and finish it physically and all of that, but we'll see. Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, probably one of the biggest books that I have. It's not the biggest book on my shelves, it's the biggest book in my classics. And classics are already like take me forever to read and are, you know, a little bit more challenging to read. And I did actually start this, and I was going to annotate it, so I did technically start reading this. And I read like maybe 2 pages or something. No, I read 10 pages. 10 pages? Is that accurate? No, 3 minus 10, so like 7 pages. But that doesn't get me anywhere, because this is almost 1,000 pages long. It's like 900 pages basically. So, I mean, it's not as big as a book I'm currently reading, Sanderson, but it's a classic, so that makes it more difficult. And there's a lot of political stuff and stuff. My dad was telling me that I should listen to a abridged version or something, because there's a lot of stuff in here that it's gonna be boring to me or something. And I was like, yeah, that sounds nice, but when I read classics, I always want to read the classic. I want to read the book. I don't want to read an abridged version. I'm a weird person that's like, I feel like I have to read the original thing that they wrote and not like a version with stuff that's cut out. even though that version of stuff that's cut out will be much easier to read and make much more sense. I'm just weird like that. And then the last book that I have for this little category here is a book that doesn't belong to me. I know I should be picking the classics off of my physical TBR because I have way too many classics, but I have been really, really, really wanting to read this. This is another thick one. How many pages? This is 700. Wait, no. That's just the end notes. So it's 700 pages. But I'm choosing this because I really want to read this, and my dad keeps telling me this is a really good book, and this is like probably his favorite classic. Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Yes, it is a Russian novel. But you know what? I can read Russian novels now because I read Anna Karenina, so I want to read The Brothers Karamazov. We'll see how this goes. Again, it doesn't matter. I might listen to some of these on audiobook, or all of them, or none of them. It really doesn't matter. I'm definitely going to be at least listening to a couple of them on audio, because that's how I am. I listen to audiobooks. And then the next little bit we have is that you have to read 6+ poems and or from different poets. I don't have a ton of poetry, but my mom owns a lot of poetry, so I want to see what poetry she thinks is the best and what I like. I'm gonna get her opinion and be like, what's your favorite poetry? What should I read? Blah blah, because she's really into poetry. But in saying that, I actually have 2 poetry books, but I'm not gonna do the one because it's not Victorian, and I'm gonna keep this poetry Victorian. But I have Alfred Lord Tennyson's Idylls of the King, and these are poems, but they're about King Arthur and the Arthurian legends and all of that. So I don't know that I'll read the whole book. I'm not really sure where I stand with poetry at this point. I used to not be a fan of poetry because the few little poems from books and stuff that I did try to read, I wasn't a fan of. But I think if I read the right poetry, I think I would love poetry. Because I'm reading another book right now, actually. It's The Blights Are Quoted, and there's some poems written in here by Anne, and they're absolutely amazing. I love them. Now, I don't know if it's just because it's written by Ellen Montgomery, and I love Ellen Montgomery's writing, all of that, but it's just amazing. So I do have this one. Also, I'm not putting this because first off, I'm reading it right now, so this won't work for this, and also because it's not Victorian, it's Edwardian, so there's a difference there. And then the next little thing is to pick a speciality. I decided to pick short story / short fiction, but if you want some ideas for some other specialities, there's Gothic literature, history of the book, manuscript studies, short story / short fiction, indigenous literature, which I don't really, translated works, literature by women, history, poetry, fairy tales, history of cyborgs and literature, Sherlock and multiverse, golden age of detective fiction, and mythology. So there's all kinds of different stuff in there. I think I decided to go with short story / short fiction because I figured that would fit my third thing that I chose. And I do have some short stories and stuff, so I figured I'd just go with that. I don't know. But 2 of the books that I currently own, I would love to buy some more related to the next section I'm going to talk about. But first, I have this. This is the Penguin Classics Penguin Book of Dragons. So it has a bunch of stories by different people. I don't think these are specifically Victorian, but it doesn't have to be because this is the speciality. So this doesn't technically have to be Victorian, I don't think. But we have, oh look, J.R. Tolkien. We have some stories in here from different people. There's all kinds of different, classic dragon stories. And if you know me, I am obsessed with dragons. So this is just so perfect. And I need to actually get to it. So, that's book number 1. And book number 2 that I have is Great Stories of the Sea and Ships, edited by N.C. White. This has a ton of different authors in here that are I guess, familiar. Hans Christian Andersen, Christopher Columbus, James Fenimore Cooper, Daniel Defoe, Alexander Dumas, Elizabeth Gaskell, Homer, Victor Hugo, Washington Irving, Rudyard Kipling. Those are just some of the recognizable names. Herman Melville, Edgar Allan Poe, Sir Walter Raleigh, Robert Louis Stevenson. Those are just the names I recognize on here, but there's a whole bunch of different people that wrote some stories. And I actually started this when I bought it. I read a little bit of the first story, and what I read so far of the first story, this is Hans Christian Andersen. I loved what I read so far of the first story in here, but I didn't continue it because I shouldn't have started it at the time I started it, and then I just haven't touched it since. So those are some options that I have for that. And then my other option is that I would love to eventually somehow find some short stories written by Charles Dickens, because going into my next thing is to pick a literary mentor, read as many works of theirs as you can. I want to pick Dickens, not only because yes, he is a Victorian author. I don't think that matters. What matters is that my goal in life is to read every single Dickens novel, and that's why I'm choosing Dickens. And I love his works a lot. So, we're just going to go through some of the books that I physically own. I would love to get to anything I possibly can by him. We'll see how much of it I actually read. I might only read like one or two, who knows. But I would love to read as many of his novels as I can in this little, whatever you call this thing, challenge, whatever you call this. I'd love to get to as many as I can, but I can't be confident that I'll get to very many. But I would love to get to at least the ones that I own, possibly more than that, because, like I said, I want to read every single book he's ever written. So I do want to get to all of his books one day. But the ones I own that I have not read are Hard Times and Barnaby Rudge. I am obsessed with these editions. I love these Penguin Classic editions with the orange spines. They are my favorite. Not only do the orange spines look really cool in my opinion, but I just love these editions, the way they feel, the way they look, and I love the colors. I think the colors are really cool, and I love the way they feel. But we have those two. And then we have Oliver Twist, which I know the story, but I want to officially read it. Because I had listened to the audio drama before and read it once. And then I also own Old Curiosity Shop. Those are just the ones I own. I would really love to get to Bleak House. Specifically, the one that I would love to get to is Bleak House, the one that I don't own, that I would love to really get to. But I've heard some things about Barnaby Rudge. Actually, I was talking to my aunt yesterday about Dickens and stuff, and I was asking her which books she had read, and she said she tried to get into Barnaby Rudge, and a lot of people told her it was like not good, and this is one of his not very good novels or something. I don't know, but I own it, so we'll see what I think about it. But I would like to make my way all the way through the whole novel. Whether I like it or dislike it, I don't know, but I would like to read the whole thing because it's my goal to read every single Dickens novel. So that includes reading the whole book. But those are just that's all of the stuff. I don't know what this random video is. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did. Yeah. Basically, my plan for all of these books I'm gonna read, I may just start this like in the month of November, because I currently have an October TBR, so I can't read most of these books right now. Maybe I'll pick a random one up or something, but I can't really read these books right this second. But I would like to start this challenge. I was kind of just thinking I would start it at the beginning of 2024, but really I could just start it in November. That's fine. Whenever I get the chance to start this challenge, I will start it. I don't know why I'm calling this a challenge, but it's kind of like a challenge because I have to try and read all these classics. But I'm also, like, I really want to do this because I do have a lot of classics on my shelves. Like, a lot. Like, half of this shelf right here, or more than half, is classics. Something else I forgot to mention. more shorts. There's poems. Ooh. Okay, so I do want to read some of this as well. I forgot to mention this one. This is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and other classic works by Lewis Carroll. I've read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland before, so I don't know if I'll be rereading that for this. I do want to read it someday, but probably not for this, just because I have so many other things. But he does have poems and other stuff in here, so I'll have to read some of his poems. I didn't know there were poems in here, but I'm not sure. I don't know if there's any short stories. They might just all be like his actual books, the Lewis Carroll book. Again, I will not be reading all of this. I'll just reading select few things in here. Mostly probably the poems, and if there's any short stories, maybe. So that's it for this random weird video. My goal with this video, or this idea, is that I want to get through some of my classics, because like I said before, multiple times, I own so many classics. It's insane, and I have not been reading them, like, at all. Like, I read a classic here and there, but I need to read my classics. I need to read more classics than I've been reading. So, only one of these books isn't actually my book, and there are a couple of short stories that I would like to find. I don't know the specific short stories. I just know that Charles Dickens has short stories, and I want to read some of them. Well, I want to read all of them, but, I want to read some of them for this thing. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment down below, all of that. And if you're into history, social, fashion, and check out every channel as well. I will see you in the next video. I hope everyone has fun. Bye.